Welcome back, everybody. America doesn't feel real. It feels like a fever dream. That's the best way that I can really put it. It doesn't seem like something that's so complicated and something that exists in a 24/7 cycle of chaos like our great country should be able to stand. There's any kind of coherent infrastructure at this point, I think, is a testament to those who actually designed it. But I'd say in the end, all of this really is just held up by fear. The fear that things can get worse is the only possible reason I can think of why Americans have let things get to and maintain the course of where we're at right now. I mean, I don't know what is political theater anymore and what is serious. I don't know what satire is anymore and what is reality. And I think that's why this feels like a fever dream the most, is because that blurred line between reality and between fiction, it contributes to a feeling that our society is a construction more than just a reality. Because there's no way that this can be maintained. This is completely unsustainable reality that we're in, a completely unsustainable mode of life that most Americans have. What we're witnessing now in America is a collapse of the consumer culture. And it's slow to happen, but it is happening. So many people so many people are living paycheck to paycheck, but at the same time, you have people who are hurrying to buy Labubus. You have people who are hurrying to go to NFL, to NASCAR, to some kind of distraction, because that's the only real thing that we have now, is our displays of distraction. It's the only thing that keeps Americans sane at this point, that keeps them from actually jumping off the cliff, is just mindless distraction. Because to actually look at what's happening in this country, to actually face that head up, and realize the dire situation that most Americans are in would be enough to break most people. Certainly enough for a lot of people to just say, I've had enough of this and go live somewhere else. And of course, as always, that is an option on this channel. But the idiocy and rhetoric that's coming from this administration is enough to keep people on edge all the time. Like I said, this system can only be held up by fear at this point because it's not held up by reality. Our stock market is held up by inflated numbers. Corporations buying their stocks, inflating these numbers, and eventually there's going to be a bubble and it's going to crash. Right? The market's going to have to collapse at some point, or it's going to have a massive correction, unlike anything we've ever seen. Right? We started cutting rates at a time where the market was an all-time high. That is a horrible thing to do, because when you cut rates, you drive up asset prices. And what are stocks? Stocks are assets, baby, and they go up. And the price of houses, they go up. The price of everything goes up, because we get inflation with that too. And our very idea of what reality was, us actually going to work and making enough money so we can actually afford any kind of decent life, is just gone now. That's why so many people are just kind of quitting jobs, quitting their careers, walking away from the system entirely, because that's the only rational thing that you can do now, is walk away from a system that doesn't actually want to engage with you. I've long said that this system isn't meant for us, and that's a very common perception at this point. And I think it's growing more and more common. And I think the acceptance of that is growing beyond politics at this point, because people are realizing, both on the right and on the left, that politics just don't serve them. And it hasn't ever really, but it's still, we are a country that's set on the mode of tribalism, right? My team versus your team. That's the way that it is. The reason our country is bad is because of you and the people that you follow and you vote for. No, it's you and the people that you vote for and follow. And that's really one of the biggest reasons why we got to where we are today. That's one of the biggest reasons why Donald Trump actually got in the office, because people hated the left and hated the right. They wanted somebody else to come in, this kind of political outsider. But give me a normal politician again. You ever find yourself you come across an old speech, right, from Obama, we'll say, and you're like, wow, how things have slipped by between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I would love to hear a president actually have a coherent speech that can actually drive meaning to the American people into the direction that we want to go. We have some kind of common consensus, but that's too much to ask for now. We have a reality show host that's driving our country into the ground. That orange piece of shit is ruining this country, right? And the sycophants and bootlickers around him are just making it even worse. There's nowhere for the people to go. There's nowhere for the people to go except towards each other. I think in the end, we hear about the alt-left pipeline for blue-collar workers right now. Blue-collar workers all over the country are starting to go left because they're realizing that all the promises that were made that were going to help them only helped the billionaires, only helped the oligarchs, industry, not the industry workers. Industry means nothing if it isn't for the workers. All the profits in a country mean nothing if it doesn't actually go to the workers. America is a country built of working class people, but when we focus on everyone except the working class, you doom your country. America is a doomed country for that reason alone. And that's why you have such a cultural and spiritual battle happening in this country right now, because people don't want to relent, because this is their country. This is our country, and we fight for it. Whether our words, our actions, we fight for it because it's worth fighting for, because it's the only one that we have. If you're born into it, this is your homeland. It doesn't matter if your family generations ago came from Africa, came from Europe, came from Asia, came from Latin America. It doesn't matter. This is your country. You have a right to be here. You have a right to fight for the country that you believe it is, and not have that definition be dictated to you by people who've never actually experienced a normal American life. The voice of the people in America is growing and becoming louder and louder and becoming impossible to ignore. And it's becoming so loud that it's pushing away the political division in some places. We're starting to see people come together. We're starting to see people leave MAGA and come to the left, because the left has become an umbrella for all of those who are not MAGA. That's the reality. The Overton window has shifted so far to the right that if you're just not a supporter of Donald Trump, then you are on the left. So I say, welcome, my friends. They do not shun you, or do not turn you back or turn you away. Life is a learning experience, and you've learned. But now you're one of us, once again, as you have always been, but you've been in denial. You've always been a member of the working class, and to be a member of the working class essentially is to be on the left. Even left-leaning, if you will, because like I said, if just to deny any action that this administration has put in effect, to deny it or to argue it and say, maybe this isn't a good idea, you must be a communist, there must be something wrong with you. If the things that are happening from this administration are so objectively immoral, so objectively against the will and interest of the American people, then the only stance you can truly take is that to be a supporter of the American people is to stand opposed to this administration. I want the American people all to be the beneficiaries of all the greatness that this country has to offer, instead of it being hoarded and held by very few select people who would never give that power, ever give that wealth up. This is our country. And you have to be loud, and you have to be proud, and you have to fight for it in one way or another. You do what you can. You do as you can. But the farther we let this go, the more entrenched into the dystopia America actually becomes, where people can't live paycheck to paycheck anymore. Right? Where childhood food insecurity has gone through the roof. Where people can't afford to have pets anymore, so they give them to the shelter. Where people forego having children and having families because the idea of homeownership or the idea of actually having a place of your own is a foregone conclusion. But at the same time, we've gilded the White House. We put gold everywhere. We've made it more grand. We've made it a grand spectacle in the burning dumpster fire that is America. It's only in places of severe dictatorship that you usually see that kind of setup, where the people are suffering, the people don't know what the future holds, the people don't know where their food's going to come from, they don't know if agriculture is going to collapse and they're actually going to be able to eat, because the biggest priority for most people is simply food, then shelter. But when people have never even heard the name groceries until last year, when people think that they can reinvent the wheel that the people are reliant on, but at the same time, before having any kind of alternative, they're going to take that wheel that people are dependent on and throw it into the ditch. The system is designed to destroy the average working man. America is a lost place in its current state, but it's not lost forever. America is a place of great purpose, filled with people who have purpose but have had that purpose denied, or at least the way that they can actually fulfill their purpose. America has become a place of people that are trapped in their circumstances, unable to lift themselves out of those. And that's something that only a third world country really has. Lack of opportunity. We went from the land of freedom and the land of opportunity to the graveyard of opportunity. And it's because the decisions of a very few people who've redirected our economy in a way that only works for a small group of people while we are forced to fend for the scraps. But I say enough of that. Let's not do that anymore. Right? Disengage, detach, do not support this anymore. Oh, the only alternatives that we have are the Democrat Party and they're just as bad. Maybe. I doubt it. Would we have tariffs destroying small businesses all over America right now? Would we have US aid defunded and people all over the world starving because we're no longer giving? Would we have childhood food insecurity at levels that we've not seen in my lifetime? Would we have a general sense of nihilism and failure when it comes to reflecting our status of what America means? I don't think so. I don't think so. Would things have progressively gotten worse? Yeah, probably, but at a much slower pace and given time to make a correction at some point. But to throw America headlong into disaster without any kind of safeguards, without any kind of backup plan, when we have one will that's driving the direction of America, driven simply off of pure ego and the consequence of the benefit of one or a few families, this is unsustainable in our country. This is a fever dream. Our country has become something unreal, something unrecognizable to those of us who are around and conscious of what our country actually meant before the past 10 years. Rediscover what it is to be an American, redefine it from what it is now to what it should be, and let it become that. People who turn away from this administration, I understand a drive to want to hold them accountable, say, how can you be so stupid? At the same time, have open arms for people who want to join our side. Understand that we are the opposition, but we are the loyal opposition, loyal to this country. And I say to you that those who are in charge of this country, those who are supporting this administration, fundamentally in their actions, in the positions that they've taken, their identity as Americans, I think, is subject to question, or at least speculation. Because from my vantage point, from the vantage point of many people out there, everything seems to be done to work against our country right now. Right? If you're in the small circle that actually supports or benefits from, yeah, of course, good times are being had right now. But if you're the vast majority of people who are living in this country right now, who are struggling, who just want something better for their children, something better for them, something sustainable, something that they can build towards, just having that dream of owning a small business and starting that, a dream of having any kind of financial freedom or being able to build equity in their lives through home ownership, which has always been the core first step for actually attaining the American dream, then this has to stop. And we have to find another way. And there's many alternatives. They're like, provide an alternative. Stop the tariffs. Stop putting stigma on American people who disagree with you. Stop trying to ruin their lives. Keep troops off the American streets. Stop invading our democratic cities simply because it is a show of force. Because a show of force inevitably gets a response. And a response isn't anything that I think the people actually want. It's a hard thing because part of us we want to drive this out of our country, but at the same time, the risk of that throws America into civil war. And I think that is the end of America, right? The end of this great fever dream. And apparently sometimes maybe we just need to be shaken out of our slumber. We need to be woken up, and that could be disastrous. And maybe that is the way that we need to go. Some people say that it is. Some people we need to be St. Patrick driving the snakes out of this country because there's no logic to the opposition right now. There's no logic to this administration. There's just a true sense of self-belief in their righteous cause and that everything that they're doing has a positive effect, even though it is harming people, even though the job market is collapsing, even though the secondary economy, which we all belong to, because we're not the primary one, that's for sure, is collapsing. We're in a great recession, if not a depression, but those in the upper class are in a state of euphoria. They need to be shaken out of that. Understand what we're actually going through, but even if they understood, would they actually care? No, because you're not worth it to them. You're someone who can easily be sacrificed for the good of their portfolio. That's how these people are. They've always been that way, but we fooled ourselves somehow to thinking that they could ever champion the cause of the normal American person. They can only champion their own cause because that's built into who they are. People of such a wealthy class, they aren't raised around normal people. They don't understand normal people, and they don't believe they are normal people. Even if they might try to schmooze with them, serve up some fries at a McDonald's, they'll never be the same. They'll never be the same. And we should stop pretending that they are the right people who should be leading us. A country ran by the people, a country for the people. That's what this country is. It's what it should be. It certainly isn't right now. We cannot let our country return to monarchy. We cannot let it become an authoritarian state. We are at the verge of that happening, if not already in the throes of it currently. And as more of these disasters are showed to the loyal followers of this administration, as long as more of those failures are laid out before them, and the consequences of their actions, and the dead bodies, and the loss of jobs, and the loss of housing is laid out in front of them, so they have to keep justifying and justifying and justifying, they'll find themselves in a position where they can no longer justify the evils that are being done in their name, where they would eventually have to say, this isn't me, I've had enough, I'm stepping away. And that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing it more and more. And I say, brothers and sisters, welcome. Welcome to the loyal opposition. We are legion. We are many. And our voice is growing undeniable at this point. Let your voice be heard. If you're still here at this point, ladies and gentlemen, like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member. Donations always work. The channel is growing. The voice is getting out there. The message is getting out there. America is a great country. America is a disaster. But it's our disaster, and we control the destination of its future. Dictators die. Authoritarians die. But America remains. The people remain. And in the end, that's what happens. Eventually, this time will be gone. This is a time of extremism that America is going through, but at some point, it will all be over. And the people will be here to pick up the pieces. And we need to remember that though it feels like we're in the fight of our lives, although it feels like we're teetering towards disaster, that disaster is always temporary. Right? A disaster is an anomaly and a baseline of boring times. And we just can't wait to get back to boring times here on Large Man Abroad. Everybody, thank you so much. I hope you have a good one.